This is Into the Multiverse with Josh Peck.
Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new episode of Into the Multiverse. I am your host, Josh Peck. Hey, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you click the bell, and YouTube might still not notify you. If YouTube doesn't notify you, just know every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Central, you will get a brand new episode of Into the Multiverse. So we've been really heavy on the quantum physics stuff, and I want to get a little bit more into the Bible, even the book of Enoch this time, and talk about something that I've written about before in books like Unraveling the Multiverse, Quantum Creation, Cherubim Chariots, Abaddon Ascending, I believe, The Day the Earth Stands Still, which I co-authored with Derek Gilbert, the visions of heavenly chariots, because I've always found this really interesting. You know, I think that when we think of a spiritual being or a spiritual craft, that we think of something that's not really made of anything, and when in fact it's extra dimensional. It's more solid than we even are. So I wanted to talk about that from a biblical perspective today. We're definitely dealing in quantum physics because it's extra dimensional things in nature, but I want to bring it back to Scripture too. So visions of heavenly chariots can be found in a few places throughout ancient Hebrew texts, and probably the most famous visions of heavenly chariots are those of the prophets Ezekiel, which, you know, we've explored that already on this show and probably will again, and Zechariah. Now we'll get into those in other episodes. We'll get into that, and we had before, but for now, just as a precursor to any episodes we might do in the future on that, we can look at some of the other visions of chariots that are found in Jewish scripture. So one of the most dramatic visions of extra-dimensional chariots can be found in the pages of the Bible concerning the prophet Elijah. We read in 2 Kings 2:1, "And it came to pass when the Lord would take up Elijah into heaven by a whirlwind, that Elijah went with Elisha from Gilgal." Now we find out later, as this verse implies, it was known to some of the sons of the prophets that Elijah would be taken into heaven by a whirlwind, you know, because they were asking him about it. Now Elijah clearly knew this as well. This foreknowledge isn't recorded as a prophecy in the Bible, but it seems there existed an unrecorded prophecy the sons of the prophets would have regarded as common knowledge. Now, whether this was written and lost or whether it was just passed down verbally, we don't really know. But the Bible gives some very interesting detail as to how this extra-dimensional encounter happened. Later, in 2 Kings 2:11, we read, "And it came to pass, as they still went on and talked, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven." Now we learn not only was there a chariot of fire, but there were horses of fire as well. And these all took part in taking Elijah into what is described as a whirlwind. And this whirlwind, as we have seen from Ezekiel's vision and that we've dealt with in other episodes, is common in biblical descriptions of heavenly chariots. It is possible this whirlwind is not just a mere tornado or another type of natural storm, that this type of heavenly whirlwind could actually be an interdimensional portal between our world and the higher dimensions. Now, another point of interest is what Elisha claims as he sees Elijah taken up into the whirlwind. So 2 Kings 2:12 says, "And Elisha saw it, and he cried, my father, the chariot of Israel, and the horsemen thereof. And he saw him no more, and he took hold of his own clothes and rent them into pieces." Now, in verse 11, the scripture says that there were horses present in verses 12. Elisha makes mention of the horsemen, signifying there were other beings present apart from the horses themselves. This is a theme that we see repeated in the account of Zechariah in his vision of the horses and chariots. Now, what's also interesting is that Elisha refers to this vehicle as the Chariot of Israel. It seems to be the official extra-dimensional vehicle for Israel that God uses as needed. Now, we've seen in other episodes, we'll deal with it in other episodes as well in the future, but further this idea that physical descriptions of this vehicle as God's chariot is really set apart from anything else. So if you can go back in the archives and just, if you look up Multiverse Ezekiel Josh Peck, something should come up if you want to learn more about that. Now, later on in his life, Elisha sees manifestations of higher dimensions again. When the servant saw he and Elisha were surrounded by the natural worldly horses and chariots of the enemy, Elisha did not seem worried at all. And when the servant's fears were made known to him, Elisha did the most sensible thing. 2 Kings 6:17 says, "And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha." So we see here again a reference to horses and chariots of fire. This is another example of beings from a higher dimension interacting with the affairs of human beings from our world in the ancient past. Now, the book of Enoch, while not part of canon, details a really interesting encounter with a human and an extra-dimensional entity, actually many of them. The Bible provides a limited amount of information concerning Enoch, but we get a little bit from Genesis 5:21 through 24, which says, "And Enoch lived 65 years and begat Methuselah, and Enoch walked with God after he begat Methuselah 300 years and begat sons and daughters, and all the days of Enoch were 365 years, and Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him." Now, verse 24 there is the end of the Genesis description of what happened to Enoch, but luckily the author of the book of Hebrews gives us a little bit more information on that. So Hebrews 11:5 says, "By faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death, and was not found because God had translated him, for before his translation he had this testimony that he pleased God." Now we read Enoch was translated and did not experience death. So the word translated is interesting. It comes from the Greek word metathemi, and means to transpose two things, one of which is put in place of the other, to transfer, to change. It's theorized that this is a precursor to the same type of change or transfer all believers will experience when Jesus Christ returns. The book of Enoch gives us a wealth of information about Enoch's encounter with extra-dimensional entities, and the best chance we have at trying to envision what Enoch saw is to read the account itself. So Enoch 14:8 through 25 says, "Behold, in the vision, clouds invited me, and a mist summoned me, and the course of the stars and their lightnings sped and hastened me, and the winds in the vision caused me to fly and lifted me upward and bore me into heaven. And I went in till I drew nigh to a wall which was built of crystals and surrounded by tongues of fire, and it began to affright me. And I went into the tongues of the fire and drew nigh to a large house, which was built of crystals. And the walls of the house were like a tessellated floor made of crystals, and its groundwork was of crystal. Its ceiling was like the path of the stars and the lightnings, and between them were fiery cherubim, and their heaven was clear as water. A flaming fire surrounded the walls, and its portals blazed with fire. And I entered into that house, and it was hot as fire and cold as ice. There were no delights of life therein. Fear covered me, and trembling got hold upon me. As I quaked and trembled, I fell upon my face, and I beheld a vision. And lo, there was a second house greater than the former, and the entire portal stood open before me, and it was built of flames of fire. And in every respect, it so excelled in splendor and magnificence and extent that I cannot describe to you its splendor and its extent. And its floor was of fire, and above it were lightnings, and the path of the stars, and its ceiling also was flaming fire. And I looked and saw therein a lofty thrones. Its appearance was as crystal, and the wheels thereof as the shining sun. And there was the vision of cherubim, and from underneath the throne came streams of flaming fire, so that I could not look thereon. And the great glory sat thereon, and his raiment shone more brightly than the sun, and was whiter than any snow. None of the angels could enter and could behold his face by reason of the magnificence and glory, and no flesh could behold him. The flaming fire was round about him, and a great fire stood before him, and none around could draw nigh him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him, yet he needed no counselor. And the most holy ones who were nigh to him did not leave by night, nor depart from him. And until then I had been prostrate on my face, trembling, and the Lord called me with his own mouth, and said to me, Come hither, Enoch, and hear my word. And one of the holy ones came to me and waked me. And he made me rise up and approach the door, and I bowed my face downwards. Now, at first, in the beginning of this account, we get the sense that this was nothing more than a vision of some sort. But at the end of the passage, we read that by the command of the Lord, one of the holy ones woke Enoch to approach the door so Enoch could see the vision was depicting reality. It's possible this was more than just a dream from God. It's possible that since Enoch was experiencing something outside from our three spatial dimensions, that he was taken out of his three-dimensional body instead of the vehicle coming to meet Enoch. It seems as though God brought Enoch up through the higher dimensions. But again, I think this is one of those, whether it's in the body or out of the body, I cannot be sure types of situations. But yeah, so there are really interesting descriptions of heavenly chariots or extra-dimensional chariots in the Bible. And I think it's important to look at those because, it's interesting. And even the extra-biblical texts such as Enoch that we just looked at before. So yeah, really interesting stuff. Now again, if you haven't had a chance to do so, make sure you subscribe, click the bell, and if YouTube still doesn't notify you, just know that every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Central, you will get a brand new episode of Into the Multiverse. Make sure to leave me a comment and let me know what you think about these strange heavenly vehicles. Make sure you subscribe. Share this video around. Let's get some people talking about this. That would be really interesting. And all that being said, until next time, thank you for joining me. Take care and God bless.
In recent years, an insidious force has methodically infected much of institutionalized Christianity. An ancient occultism, once recognized as perilous by the fathers of the faith, has slowly redressed the worship of demons as characteristics of faithful theology. Many modern churchgoers seem blind to the unseen dangers and unwittingly are embracing dangerous, arcane paganism that can, at any moment, unleash dark influence into their lives and homes. But now, former New Agers Josh Peck and Stephen Bancars will guide you through the underworld of contemporary New Ageism to expose the lies being told and sold to millions around the world. Finally, you will learn the secrets of the deceivers and ensure your own spiritual safety and that of your family and friends. Get ready. What is happening in your church and what is coming next is exposed in the second coming of the New Age by Josh Peck and Stephen Bancars.
Churches and educational establishments from universities down to elementary schools are embracing New Age philosophy and are being seduced by heavy demonic forces that are masquerading as angels of light, ascended masters, spirit guides, and even Jesus Christ himself. Skywatch TV is proud to announce the second coming of the New Age official collection. When you order the new book, The Second Coming of the New Age by Stephen Bancars and Josh Peck, you'll receive the brand new DVD Beyond Supernatural, which includes never-before-released off-the-record interviews with the authors, detailing their long history of involvement with the New Age, and personal testimonies of their deliverance by Jesus Christ. And as a bonus, this DVD includes the entire Skywatch TV 5-part series exposing the infiltration of the New Age. Plus, you'll also receive on DVD The Book of Enoch, Fallen Angels, and Ancient Aliens, an exclusive production with Dr. Michael Heiser regarding the blatant lies of ancient astronaut theory and the horrifying nature of fallen angels and alien abduction. Also included is the brand new audio series Doctrines of Devils. Listen as Stephen Bancars interviews Doreen Virtue, world-renowned former best-selling author and teacher for the New Age, as she explains her incredible supernatural journey out of the occult and into the arms of Jesus. This over 12-hour series features bonus interviews with Dr. Chuck Missler, Dr. Thomas Horn, John McTernan, Gary Bates, and many more on the subjects of ghosts, demons, and the supernatural. But that's not all. You'll also receive the oversized, beautifully republished classic masterpiece in hardback, Myths and Legends of Babylonia and Assyria. This work provides not only the account of the mysteries of the ancients, but extracts and presents to the reader the occultism driving much of the New Age and heretical doctrines today. Sold separately, these items hold a retail value of over $150. Yours now for your donation of only $35 plus shipping and handling. You can have access to everything you need to arm yourself against the onslaught of pervading spiritual darkness now. The Second Coming of the New Age official collection is available now at skywatchtvstore.com. Order now or call 1-844-750-4985.